Hi guys, welcome back to Time Machines and Wormholes. I'm CJ, your ultimate travel guide. Guess who's back? Hooray! Finally decided to do the Silmarillion review. I was putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because I moved between states. Was in Missouri, now I'm in Florida. There's a whole bunch of just stuff going on, but also I was kind of afraid to do this review just because I felt like the blog post wasn't good enough. I didn't feel like I could do it justice in a video. I went back and I read the blog post just a little bit ago, actually, reread it just to sort of review what I had written in my review, and decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put it out there. How am I ever going to get any better if I don't just do it, right? Practice makes perfect. So, here we go. Okay, so, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's actually edited by his son Christopher. The Silmarillion was not published during Tolkien's lifetime, along with copious other amounts of his work that has been since sort of put together and edited by his son Christopher and published for the fans of us out there who want more. So much thanks to Christopher for that. The Silmarillion is not a book for first-time Tolkien readers. For that, I would actually recommend not even The Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings is a very, very vast work. It's very meaty in that regard. So is The Silmarillion. It's very dense. This is actually a pretty small book comparatively to other way. The Lord of the Rings, right there. And then the Hobbit, that blue one right there, and then the orange one right there, are both The Hobbit. Two different copies. But it's a small book, but it's very dense. Insofar as if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, it's a very arduous book to read. Including for me, the first time I read it, I actually had to force myself to read it front to back, because I hate picking up a book and not finishing it, especially when I want to like it. And I desperately wanted to like it because it's Tolkien, and I had read The Hobbit and I had read The Two Towers. I hadn't read the full Lord of the Rings. I'd only read The Two Towers at that point in time, and I got the Silmarillion from Barnes & Noble because I saw, oh, Tolkien, I like him, I like his work. I'd seen the movies first. I hadn't actually ever heard of The Lord of the Rings until I saw the theatrical version of Fellowship of the Ring. Loved it, found out it was a book, and thought, I like to read. I like fantasy books. I want to read this. And I actually got The Hobbit first, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I'd read The Hobbit, I'd read Two Towers, saw this, saw it was Tolkien, thought, oh, fantasy, adventure, mythology book. I'll like this. I'll read it. That's only partly true. The first third to a half of the book is more like a theogony, insofar as you can definitely tell that Tolkien was inspired by, specifically, at least ways in my opinion, the book of Genesis in the Bible. Tolkien was a very devout Roman Catholic. You can see his faith and his belief and his piety sort of weave its way through his work, not just in the Silmarillion, but also in The Lord of the Rings. You don't really see it as much in The Hobbit. That's mostly because I think The Hobbit was written for kids. It was written for around 10 to 12-year-olds, pre-adolescents. And I note things like that in my blog post. So it can be a really arduous book to read if you go into it not knowing what you're getting yourself into. Now, that being said, the last half to little over a third of the book does come across as a fantasy adventure book. It's sort of an amalgamation of stories that are fantasy adventure in nature. They do correlate and they do follow, the entire book follows a chronological order, but those stories later on in the book that are more like fantasy adventure stories, in my opinion, they do tie into each other and they don't. And it's hard to explain. You'd have to read it for yourself. Um, but they can be read as standalone stories if you want them to. Especially the tale of Beren and Luthien. Those who are fans of Tolkien will be familiar with at least those names, if not the story, especially because when Tolkien's wife Edith died, he had the name Luthien put on her tombstone, and then when he died after her, several years after, and was buried next to her, he had the name Beren put on his tombstone, and that's because that story was actually inspired by her. They were newly married, and they went on a walk through some woods, and she danced and sang for his, entertainment, his happiness, his joy, and, just to sort of spend time together, and that inspired the story of Luthien and Beren, which is in the Silmarillion. It's a beautiful story. Um, Luthien turns out to be actually a very strong female character, especially for the time period in which the Silmarillion was written, which is early 1900s. Um, she's a stronger female character than I think you would typically see in works written around that time, which um, I know a lot of people find enjoyable. I don't really find it here or there. It depends on the story I'm reading and whether or not it fits. It does fit there because she's an elf, she's a princess, blah 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 blah. Anyway, I'm digressing. Oh, new setup, by the way. This is my bookshelf. That is a picture that my friend painted for me for Christmas. It's actually inspired by a tattoo that I want to get. Um, it's the Whomping Willow and the full moon, and you can't really see him very well, but that's Remus Lupin as a werewolf, and then Peter Pettigrew as a rat is under the Whomping Willow. I tried to get her to paint him decapitated. She wouldn't do it. So, I mean, that's fine, but probably will be in my tattoo. And then you can't really see him because a picture that my daughter painted is in front of it, but right there is Sirius as Padfoot or Snuffles. And then that is James as Prongs. Um, that's my baby. That's Pikachu. That was painted by my same friend. She actually painted it for my daughter for that same Christmas. These are DVDs. These are some books that don't really have a genre. These are Xbox games, CDs, DVDs, and then you go down. These are my historical fiction and my fantasy fiction. There's Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I have all of them except for Half-Blood Prince. And then we get into my history books, and then the bottom shelf is all history except for that last one. Right. Oh, other way. Oh, right there. Which is actually a Jimmy Buffett biography, which I haven't read yet. We'll get to that one. Promise. I've got a lot going on. I have a whole plan of what I want to read next right now. Tried the poll thing. Don't really have a whole lot of followers to do a poll yet. We'll do another one. Promise. Anyway, back to the Silmarillion. Okay, where was I? Theogony. Yeah. If you know what you're getting yourself into, by all means, dive into this book. If you think you'll like it, give it a shot. Please. It's actually a really, really, really good book. I've read it 5 or 6 times total, including the first time where I had to sort of just drudge my way through. But I found, because I went back to it to read it again a couple years after I had read it the first time, and found that I actually really, really enjoyed it. I found it very entertaining, very immersive, as Tolkien is, because he's very wordy. He loves adjectives, he loves describing things, and he loves going very in depth. When I try to do that, it just ends up wordy. So, Tolkien set a very high bar, and I don't think anybody will ever quite reach that bar. Anyway, that's my own opinion. But with the Silmarillion, going back into it, reading it a second time several years later, knowing what I was getting myself into, knowing how the book started, I did actually really, really enjoy it. So I'm letting you all know what you're getting yourselves into if you choose to read this book, so that you know, so you have that opportunity to go ahead and enjoy it for what it is and how it's written and how it's formatted. That was one of the points of doing this review, was to let other people know what this book is like and what it's about, so that they would know what they were getting themselves into should they choose to read it. Now, my copy, the second edition, it's the Ballantine Books Del Rey version, second edition, like I said, has an excerpt. It's after the foreword. It's in the preface. Preface to the second edition. I don't know if it's specific, but there's an excerpt from the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, which are actually letters that Tolkien wrote to friends and, acquaintances and colleagues during his lifetime that his son Christopher has since published. It's a letter to Milton Waldman from 1951, where Tolkien is telling him why he's writing the Silmarillion. And he wrote the Silmarillion more as an explanation for himself. He needed an explanation of why his languages were, who was speaking them, how they evolved, why they evolved the way that they did, why there are different branches of Elvish. There's Quenya, Sindarin, Sylvan, and then there's offshoots of those as well. And I think there's actually a fourth one that I'm forgetting. Oh gosh, I can't remember. Anyway, he needed to know why. Why everything. Anyway, he wrote it for himself. I don't know whether or not he ever did intend to publish it, but like I said, it was not published within his lifetime. It was edited and then subsequently published by his son Christopher, who I believe is the executor of his estate and all of the properties and blah 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 books and things. So lost what I was talking about, went off on a tangent, and now I can't find my way back. Isn't that how it goes? Anyway, I'm trying to add more personality into these videos rather than just, oh, I read books. So I hope that's coming through, and I hope it's not too off-putting, hopefully. I went back and watched the older videos, all of them, the other day. Very painful. Oh, also, new headset. So hopefully the sound is better, because noise-canceling headphones, microphone, hopefully, I hope. Definitely the first video, the introduction video, was the worst audio quality. Half a minute video, couldn't even make it through it myself, so yay, I can poke fun at myself and hopefully I'll get better. This is what we're talking about. Okay, so it's a meaty book. It's very dense. Starts off as a theogony, finishes as a fantasy adventure. Now, all of Tolkien's books, all of them, except I think The Hobbit, although maybe The Hobbit too to a certain extent, and then it probably depends on which edition you get. Anyway, their length can be very misleading. Let me see if I can find, because Tolkien has a lot of appendices in his books. Yeah, so like here, if I can put the book right side up, that'd be great. Book stops here, and then we get into family trees. All of this right here, see all of it? Ooh, that's a lot of pages. Appendices. Lord of the Rings, like that much. So like half of this book. No, probably about like that much is appendices. That's an approximation. Don't quote me on that. So the length of the book can be very misleading. It can appear daunting to those who think, let's see how many pages here. Whoop. 366 pages is a lot. That's like a booklet to me, a novella, tiny. That's just me. Let me see my notes here. What all have I covered? Sorry to subject you all to my singing. The thickness of the book. Oh, the prospective Amazon series. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, I'm very, very excited. I'm so glad that somebody has decided to do sort of a prequel series in regards to Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's world of Middle-earth. And I'm sorry, I have to adjust myself. My legs are falling asleep. Nope, can't go that far. Okay. So I'm really excited that somebody is deciding to do this. I had hoped that Peter Jackson would do it, but I know that he's said several times that he would not do a Silmarillion series. Oh, or movies or anything like that. He also said he wouldn't work on The Hobbit, and then he did. So take it with a grain of salt. But I really, really hope that whoever they do get to work on it, or whoever they did get to work on it, does a good job. I know it's not actually a Silmarillion series. It's not. Amazon has come out and said that it will take place during the Second Age, which is just before the War of the Ring, which takes place in the Third Age, the end of the War of the Ring, when Frodo throws the ring into Mount Doom, and then Aragorn goes and becomes King of Gondor, is the end of the Third Age. The Aragorn's coronation marks the end of the Third Age, and the beginning of the Fourth Age, the Age of Men. So the Amazon series is supposed to take place in the Second Age. Now, that being said, I have a feeling that, a very strong inkling, that the bits of the Silmarillion that are the fantasy, adventure, mythology sort of genre, at least a few of those stories, particularly in the later part of the book, will be in the series. If and or when it comes out, fingers crossed, because I've gone on and looked at sort of like articles and things that have been released in that regard by Amazon and the spokespeople for Amazon's original series, and specifically for that series to kind of see, what's it going to be about. And that's where I found out that it was going to consider, or going to cover the Second Age. Now, I don't know if it's going to be like the beginning of the Second Age to the end of the Second Age. I think that'll depend on how many seasons they plan on doing. So, fingers crossed again for a long series. That's just me. Super excited though. But I do think that some of those stories will be in there. At least a couple of them, if not all of them, like the story of Luthien and Beren. That would be great. I'd love to see that sort of played out. Let me look at my notes again. Not published during Tolkien's lifetime. Amazon series. Plot like the Bible. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. I've rambled a fair bit. I've gone off on tangents. I've lost my train of thought completely at that one point. So hopefully that was at least semi-entertaining. And you know what? I'm going to leave it in. I am. I'm going to leave it in. Because even if it's not entertaining, it'll let you sort of get to know me a little bit better. And, who knows? We'll maybe make friends or wheedle out the people who didn't know what they were getting themselves into when they found my teeny tiny itty bitty barely existent channel. And they'll either like me or they don't, I suppose. That was one of the points of adding more personality into these videos too. Anyway, so hopefully the sound is better. Setup is sort of not as busy in the background, but is more fitting. Because, books and entertainment and stuff. I might be coming out with some gaming videos. I play Sims. I also play Xbox. I'm still on a 360. I'm behind the times, guys. But I might be doing some gaming videos. I haven't really decided yet, but I've got OBS now, so hooray, different editing and recording software that is hopefully much more user-friendly than what I was using before. Okay, so next book, and I have already put a post, like an announcement post about this on my blog, under the Guess Who's Back blog post, that our next book that we'll be reviewing is Marriage and the Family in the Middle Ages. It's by Francis and Joseph. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know if it might be French in origin, and so then it would be like pronounced G. I don't know. Anyway, it's by them. I'm this far in it. This is the beginning of the book. This is the end of the book. And I have actually already started a couple of paragraphs, well, like 4 or 5 paragraphs of the blog post. They'll need to be edited and tweaked and all that, and of course the post will need to be finished. It's not published yet. Don't look for it yet. It's not there unless you're watching this way in the future and I finished the book and it is posted, in which case I hope you liked it. But I have already started that. And I'll be finishing the book hopefully soon. Got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm trying. I really, really am, because I want to get back into doing this on a regular basis, because that was the point. Anyway, that's what we're doing next, and then after that, we're sort of going in chronological order of the bottom shelf, bottom shelf down there of the history books. So after this one is, let me see, I can't see it from here. We'll get to that bridge when we come to it. Yeah? Okay. So, anyway, I hope this video was slightly more entertaining than just me sitting at my desk kind of talking really monotone like this. And I like books. Let me share them with you. So, here I am, guys. Hi. That's the Silmarillion. That's my review. Those are my thoughts. I really like it. Go out, read it. You might like it too, especially if you're a Tolkien fan. If you're not, or you want to be but you haven't read Tolkien yet, I suggest you start with The Hobbit. Yeah, good idea. Anyway, yeah, that's it, guys. I hope to see you all on our next trip through space and time. Bye!